Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mondoid, your one-stop shop for all things Project Zomboid. And this week, the third act twist. Also, you're getting Mondoid on Mondoid, but there's a reason for that. This Mondoid went up like super early, and it's the Mondoid I expected to get this week. It's something that I've kind of been sitting on for a while, and a lot of you are going to be incredibly excited for. So, without further ado, let's get down to the Mondoid. Hello, everyone. What's that? I don't think I quite caught that. Is this some kind of elaborate hoax? No, it's not. Multiplayer in Project Zomboid is officially confirmed to be close. It's so close. Now, I've known this for about a couple weeks that some multiplayer tests have been going on. Particularly right before Christmas, there was some multiplayer shenanigans happening between a couple of the developers. And, they were kind of toying with the idea and seeing what it was going on. And they finally have hammered out a lot of the details with the help of a few more of their teams with the netcode and stuff, and they finally have 3 videos of multiplayer working, which you should go and watch. They're 15 minutes apiece, so you got 45 minutes of good multiplayer goodness, and it's getting really, really close. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot of things that I kind of want to nail down, as the devs kind of nailed down as well, that we're going to kind of hit point by point. A lot of the things that people are going to be worried about, I want to kind of put your worries at rest. I want to put you at ease. A few things that people have questions about, I'm going to make sure we talk about, and I'm going to talk about getting my own server up and running when we have the ability to do so, and some cool plans I have with that. So, without further ado, let's dump into the first section. So, what is it? It's online multiplayer with persistent player-run servers. They have no figures on maximum of amount of people on a particular server yet, but they have tested it, and they could do about 10 or 12 without any problem. They could have gone higher, but they wanted to make sure they could optimize it. So, right off the bat, when this is going out in their testing, right now in the closed testing, they're looking at 10 to 12 people already with almost no problems. That's a good number. That's a really, really good number, especially if all the players start in West Point or Muldrow. Now, if you're looking at starting in some Muldrow, some West Point, it's going to be scattered, but it could be a lot of fun. But 10 to 12 players is nice. It's really, really nice. Anyone with a copy of Project Zomboid will be able to launch their own dedicated console, only PZ server, just by passing the appropriate parameters, blah, 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 blah. So, the way it sounds and the way it looks, to me, is going to be very similar to how Minecraft or Terraria or any of those types of games do their multiplayer. Starbound, for instance, where you kind of can set up your own server, you could whitelist people, blacklist people, and run it yourself. I will be doing something very similar for my server, but we're not going to worry about that quite yet. Moreover, modders will be able to create their own networking messages to sync the server and client, and will add checksums to check both server and client are running the same mods. In the future, we could look to auto-download stuff in case the clients don't have what is required, which is awesome. Again, I don't know the technical mumbo-jumbo, but I know checksum stuff and all that good stuff is being used in multiplayers of, like, Crusader Kings 2 and Europa Universalis. What that means is just making sure that all the players that are jumping on a particular server are running the same version of the game. And if you don't have the same checksum, it means you don't have the same versions and they're not going to be compatible. But because Project Zomboid is such a moddable game and easily compilable nature of Java, it's not exactly the most hack-resistant thing in the world. So what they warn you is that, once this does go live, I would say, make sure you're very picky about who you're going to let into the server. Because if it's just going to let anybody in, you're going to put the code out there into the forums or whatever, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be able to jump in and just hack the shit out of the game. Java is easily hackable, as I said, so just be careful. That's why the whitelist, blacklist thing exists, so you can be picky about who you let in, which is cool. They're also working on getting split screen to work seamlessly with the multiplayer once it's reintegrated, so 2, 3, or 4 players on a single machine can still play on a multiplayer server with other people, which is friggin' awesome. That's really, really cool. I'm super excited to hear that. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. So, the first bit and bout of worry that, is going to hit a lot of people, and, I am not excused for not being worried, is going to be the NPCs, because, of course, I've been, touting the NPC thing. I'm much more of a single-player guy than a multiplayer guy in a lot of respects, but NPCs are kind of what I've been waiting for, and the question, sat with me, well, oh god, they're doing multiplayer, that's going to be their biggest thing, our NPC is going to take a back seat. And that's been my worry for a week or two. And, you know, I think I could put my worries to rest, because you have to keep in mind, and they talk about this in the Why No NPC section, is that they have 2 or 3 people dedicated to just single-player stuff, on top of the people who are working on the multiplayer, also going over and working on the single-player stuff. So in a lot of ways, the NPCs haven't really been affected. And they even bring up something that I talk about before, and I've said it before actually right here. As Mathis has repeated quite correctly, the NPCs are going to be the feature that PZ lives or dies by. It's what's going to make or break the game. So, you know, there's a lot of pressure on the Indie Stone to create NPCs that work exactly as they want them to add the depth to the game that they're looking to add, as well as adding a richness and fullness to the single-player experience that is going to be the core of the game. It's funny talking to Lemmy, you know, over and over again, that NPCs are basically the entirety of the game, and the fact that they're not in the game yet and people still have fun with the game and really enjoy the game is a good sign. So with them realizing how important NPCs are going to be, and, you know, they've known this for a while, but thinking about it and diving into it and understanding that NPCs are going to be the crux of this game, and then they've decided to make NPCs even more complicated and more important and more fun to play with, and with the inclusion of the metagame and party system and this whole AI decision-making system, NPCs are going to take a little bit longer. And instead of, you know, rushing NPCs and pushing it out, they've chosen to, I don't want to say slow down, I think slow down is the wrong term, but focus more heavily on making sure that when they're implemented, you're looking at a close to fully functioning version of the NPCs put in, or at least a version of the NPCs that functions well enough where people don't freak out and recoil. On top of that, multiplayer has been something, especially since hitting Steam, and they talk about this in the blog, that players have been screaming for and have actually barred a lot of people from picking up the game, which I find a little surprising personally. I think if you really were interested in Project Zomboid, you should have picked it up a year ago when it was extra cheap. I still think it's well worth it, the 15 or 16 bucks American dollars it's worth now. But for those people who are like, well, I want to wait till multiplayer, you know, there's so many people screaming for that they've almost had to get the multiplayer in, because it's by and large probably the most requested feature in the game now on Steam. That's not incredibly unexpected in my honest opinion. Steam is notorious for adoring multiplayer games. That's just what they love. They love things that have multiplayer. DayZ, you know, Team Fortress, anything that's multiplayer, it does really well on Steam. Dota 2, etc. And largely single-player games, which is a debate in and of itself, are not as successful as single-player games with a robust multiplayer option. So getting in multiplayer and getting it working is also something that's kind of needed, because the majority of the people want it. And if you ignore what the majority of the people are wanting, you're kind of just ignoring your mass consumer base. On top of the people who said they're not going to buy the game until multiplayer is in it, regardless of NPCs, you're missing out on a large chunk of player base that they could be having, helping them test their alpha game, helping them pick out bugs, and having people enjoying the game. So they've almost been forced. I don't want to say forced, but they've almost been, well, I guess forced to up their priorities a little bit as far as the development of Project Zomboid and what comes out before what. That and, well, NPCs are going to be amazing, and I want to make sure, I'm happy to hear that they're going to make sure that they're done right as opposed to rushing them out. So is multiplayer out right now? The answer is no, not yet. It is in closed testing right now. There are, you know, like I said, they've done tests before. I've been following it pretty closely. And there's a lot of bugs and stuff, syncing issues, a lot of stuff that they want to nail out, because if they put it out there and there's like syncing problems, it's nigh on unplayable, right? So you need to make sure that that's working. But once up and running, you can expect me to hopefully get some one-on-one time with the developers. I'm going to have an exclusive multiplayer video up on my channel once it's up, talking to the devs and playing with them on Project Zomboid and talking about it. They actually have a nice little paragraph right here. Once it's done, you can look forward to people like Twiggy, Mathis, take part in some multiplayer, which is awesome. I'm really, really excited. But they don't want to do that yet. They don't want me recording yet because there's still some, you know, stable. It needs to be stable and bug-free, which is totally cool. So when can we expect it? You know, they say 1 to 2 weeks. I would err on the side of 2 weeks. Could be a little bit longer. Again, coding is a bitch, and things pop up that could take, extra days, extra hours. Some things that could be difficult could take less than time than they expected. It's really hard to say. If they are giving a time frame of 1 to 2 weeks, I would err on the side of 2 weeks. I would say even potentially longer. So don't get too excited, but keep an eye on it, especially on the forums, and start planning your stuff now. So the last thing I want to talk about, then, with all that out of the way, is how am I going to do multiplayer? The number one question I get on my channel over and over and over again is, Mathis, are you going to do multiplayer with your viewers? Mathis, are you going to do multiplayer with your viewers? And the answer is yes. Yes, I am. So what am I going to do? What is my plans as far as multiplayer once it comes out? Now that it's like, I thought it was pretty, a while ago I thought it was way in the distance. In the past few weeks I've been like, okay, I got to think how I'm going to do this now because it's coming close. People are going to be asking for it. So how do I want to do it? So I'm going to get my own server up and running, obviously, when the opportunity arises and I can do so. But I think the way I'm going to do it is I'm not going to do a series of multiplayer. I might do a multiplayer series with like Dean or something, but as far as servers go and playing with players, I might take one of my stream days and turn it into a Zomboid with the community play day. Once a week, instead of playing whatever game I'm playing at the time, I will take 1 day a week where I stream and stream multiplayer Project Zomboid with all of you guys. And we'll have rotating, we'll have to rotate players because there's going to be a lot of people who want to play. And especially if I can only support up to 15 or so people, depending on how well it's optimized and coded. But I will be rotating people out, but I'm going to do 1 day a week where I take away the game that I'm playing and replace it with Zomboid and play with all of you guys and have a cool situation. There's going to be options to turn on PvP and turn it off and all that stuff. I can almost guarantee you I'll turn on PvP to have some fun and create all these cool stories that are going to happen. But I've not obviously worked out the details as to how it's going to happen quite yet, just because the game is not available for me to do so. Once it is available and I can start working out the kinks and I've had some hands-on time with the multiplayer to see how it works, then we'll talk about just how we're going to do the multiplayer stuff. But expect a once-a-week Zomboid with the community kind of thing happening. I'm really excited for that to happen. So that's it. I would go read the entirety of this blog. It's really long. I, of course, summarized it in about 12 or 13 minutes. It's well worth it. There's also 3 videos of the multiplayer working if you want to see just what the sync issues are, what it's going to look like, how it's going to play. It's really, really cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm incredibly excited. And if you're one of those once-a-weekers, I'll see you next week. If you're a regular, I'll see you later today. And as always, I'll see all of you next time. Bye-bye.